Everything you need to know about the ROG Xbox Ally and the ROG Xbox Ally X. So welcome to this video, and I've just been playing both of these consoles at Gamescom. Yes, this is me. I'm going to tell you exactly how this works because I've seen a lot of confusion about whether you can download games for this thing, how the games actually run, and also what games are on it. So I'm going to clear up all of that confusion right now. I played Gears of War Reloaded, I played Lies of P, and a few others. So here's exactly how this console works. Now, you can download any Xbox game on this thing and play it offline as long as it's supported. That means you can go on a long flight and play your handheld, or you can go on a car ride and play it offline. You do not need the internet. So again, think of it like a PC that you can download things to. In fact, you can download and install games from multiple different storefronts. It's not just the Xbox storefront. So in other words, you can go on Steam and download any Steam game. That also means you can download Sony games. So this is an Xbox device where you can download God of War, Spider-Man, and Horizon Forbidden West. There is, however, a catch to this. Some titles must be streamed. That means you will need to be online and have an internet connection to stream some of these games. There are two ways to stream using the ROG Xbox Ally or the ROG Xbox Ally X. And also I will be explaining the difference between these two consoles and which one you're going to want to buy. So the first way you can stream is using cloud gaming. This accesses the games from an Xbox server, so you don't need another device, or you don't need a piece of Xbox hardware. You can just have this console as standalone and stream the games from an Xbox server. Or you can stream them through Xbox Remote Play. Now this uses your default console to stream the games from your console. So you will need an Xbox at home or wherever you have an Xbox in order to use Remote Play. So there are two different streaming options if the games aren't available on the platform to download. So how do you tell the difference between what games you can download and what games you can't? Well, good news for that, because there is a badging system. So Microsoft actually has a way you can tell which games can be downloaded, and they're going to be categorizing all of the games, so you can tell which games you can download and run locally and which are available for streaming and which you can do both with, which is going to be really handy because you don't want to have to pay for a game and then find out you can't run it. Now that is it's a negative for me because some games can be played locally and some games can't, so it's not really consistent, and there is rightfully a lot of confusion in the community about this. So I understand where that confusion comes from. Hopefully the badging system will go some way to redeeming that, but yeah, it is confusing straight off the bat. Now I'm going to tell you my impressions of how the game's actually played, and it's good news because the performance of the ROG Xbox Ally X in particular was mind-blowing. First off, I played Gears of War Reloaded, and this was on the ROG Xbox Ally X. What I did was manage to get it all the way up to max settings, and I ran it on 60 frames per second, and it did not break a sweat. It looked incredible, it ran incredible. Not only that, but the machine, it was quiet. I could not hear it struggling. I could not hear the fans going round and round. So really good performance there. And another thing that's very underrated with these things, the handheld did not heat up at all. So it did not get hotter in my hands, and that is pretty miraculous. Another game I played was Lies of P, and that was also on max settings at 60 frames per second. So an absolutely incredible performance from this thing. Now, I also played the ROG Xbox Ally, which was the white one, and that's slightly less good in the performance terms. This has 16 gigs of RAM compared to the ROG Xbox Ally X's 24 gigs of RAM, and also a 512 gig storage drive rather than the 1 TB storage drive of the ROG Xbox Ally X. I might just start calling it the Ally X because it is quite a mouthful. The screen is the same size, the hardware is the same size, so it's exactly the same in your hands, and it weighs the same as well, so not much difference there, although the screen is slightly less on the Ally. The battery of the Ally is 60 watts, whereas the battery of the Ally X is 80 watts. So slightly different there, although I do have to say that when I was playing both of these consoles, they were plugged in. That means I didn't really get a sense of how long the battery lasts, and the people I asked, so I asked a few Xbox officials how long the battery lasts as well, and they weren't able to tell me. They just said it differs depending on the game. So you can only really use the previous handhelds in this category for how long the battery is going to last for, and normally that's around 5 to 6 hours, which is pretty good, but it does mean, you know, you will have to go ahead and find a power station or an adapter or an outlet somewhere in order to charge this after a few hours. Another feature I really like about these handhelds is the quick resume option. So with quick resume, you can exit out of a game, then enter all the way back into it without any delay. So it takes about a second and you can load back into a game with no delay. There's also a really good UI on this thing, so you can have multiple games in tabs and tab between them and choose which one you want to have running in the background. So for instance, I had Gears of War Reloaded and Lies of P, and I could press one of the buttons on the console to have them in a sort of tab, and then one of these I could re-enter using the quick resume. Now, how does this differ from previous ROG Ally? So for instance, the Asus ROG Ally, which is a few years old at this point. Well, it doesn't really, aside from the hardware, which is Xbox branded, it doesn't really differ from previous consoles or handhelds, whatever you want to call them. There is one differentiator, however, and that is the optimization by Xbox. So Xbox has optimized a bunch of games to run specifically on this handheld. They've used a mixture of AI upscaling and different technology to make games run better and have better frame rates and things like that. Now, this is always going to be mixed. So not every game is going to be optimized by Xbox, because I guess they can't just go in and tweak thousands of games, but those that are really, really good. So I've already mentioned Gears of War Reloaded. There's also Hollow Knight Silksong, which I played. To be fair, that is a 2D side scroller, so it's never going to be the most intensive game, but that is just another example of a game they've upscaled. Now, let me get on to the negatives, and one of the biggest negatives for me is the lack of detachable controllers. The controllers on this thing cannot be detached, which means there's one thing that's going to be really, really bad if it happens, and it might happen to you. This is stick drift. So if you didn't know, stick drift is when one of your sticks starts drifting towards the left or the right or in any direction, and there's nothing you can do about it, and it only gets worse as time goes on. Now, if this had detachable controllers, you could detach the controllers, send them off for repair, get them replaced, or bolt on another replacement set of controllers. Since these aren't detachable, however, it means if you develop stick drift in one or both of your sticks, you're going to have to send your entire console off for repair. Or if they're not going to repair the device because it's touch and go sometimes, you're going to have to sell it and then get it replaced. So it's not just a case of modular replacing a part, you have to do the whole thing. So that's one of the big negatives for me, and stick drift seems to be quite common, especially in the things that I've owned over the years, so that is not great. Another negative now, and this one is the screen. So on both of these things, we do not have the OLED screens. Now, I know a lot of players have been demanding OLED screens, especially as the technology gets more widespread and also cheaper. So it is a massive mystery to many people why Xbox has opted to not have this technology in the handhelds. Instead, what we have is an FHD display. Now, this runs at 1080p, and it has a 120 Hz refresh rate, so it's not actually as bad as a lot of people are saying, and it did impress me. Now, these are screens that are only 7 inches, so, you know, it's not as big as a deal as if you were watching, say, a 30-inch screen. On those big screens, you're going to tell the difference immediately, whereas these, I didn't really notice the effect of the lack of OLED. So, for me personally, the FHD screen at 1080p, it did look pretty impressive. But yeah, I do know a lot of people are going to be disappointed by the lack of OLED. So yeah, I'm going to class this one as a negative. Although I do see Xbox trying to keep the cost down of this thing and also trying to get the performance in line. So that is their reason for avoiding putting the top spec screens in both of these handhelds. So anyway, those were just my thoughts on the ROG Xbox Ally and the Ally X after going hands-on with both of these handhelds at Gamescom. These really are divisive machines, especially because it is hard to know what games can actually run on this thing and what games can't. The more hardware Xbox goes into, the more the library seems splintered and fractured, and it just gets really confusing. But you know, what I played of these was pretty impressive. To have Gears of War Reloaded running at max settings at 60 frames per second was a joy to see, as well as Lies of P and Claire Obscure Expedition 33. Xbox has yet to announce a price for both of these devices, which is going to be really important in determining whether I'm going to get one and whether probably you guys are going to get one as well. But we're going to wait and see about that. When that price does come out, I'm going to update this video, or even just maybe just put it in the comments. The release date for these handhelds is October 16th, so not long to go now. But yeah, let me know down in the comments if you're going to take the plunge on either of these devices, and you know what you think about them. You know, what are some of the negatives and positives, and also if you've got any questions about these devices, do let me know and I will do my best to answer them. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next video.